Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. You have joined us from 18 different countries around the world. You joined us from United States, from Europe, from India, from Middle East. We are truly honored to be part of the GigWork Summit community. I'm Gaurav Deshpande. I am the Chief Marketing Officer at Hypertrack. And I'm excited to welcome all of you here. We have over 100 companies worldwide that have joined us here online. This summit has been in the making for a while. The GigWork community has been asking for it. So this is your GigWork Summit. Without further ado, let me introduce the speaker for today. We have Fritz Trott, founder and CEO of Zenjob. I'm super excited about this session, guys, because Fritz has scaled. He's going to share his playbook. It's very rare that you get founder and CEOs to share their playbook of scaling. And Fritz is actually going to share the playbook of scaling, how he's scaling Zenjob from single use case, started with that, and up to all the way up to 100 million plus euro ARR. So without further ado, let me hand it off to Fritz. Fritz, if you want to take it away. That'll be wonderful.
Cool. Yeah. Thank you. Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you. I'll be super happy to share some context on Zenjob, as well as maybe a few words on myself, and share a few insights on what I've seen, what I've experienced, what we've seen and experienced in the company, in building the company, and I'm happy to afterwards obviously also ask questions, and I think we will also have some time for Q&A. So I was asked to talk about the value of focus and how that actually helped in building Zenjob as a marketplace. And I'd start by first maybe giving a short update or introduction of Zenjob. So who are we? What are we actually doing? So Zenjob is a staffing platform. We're based in Berlin. We started actually end of 2015. We sat together. We founded the company, then went into business in 2016. By now we're 280 employees, like roughly 300 employees. 1/3 is tech and product. We're active in Germany, only in Germany, and within Germany only in 25 areas around bigger cities. Last year we had roughly 50,000 talents. That's how we call our workers, earning money via Zenjob, and more than 3,000 companies who relied on Zenjob sending them staff. And that resulted in quite a strong revenue growth in the course of the last couple of years. As a business, and you also see that from the pictures, we serve clients in the industries around logistics, hospitality, but also office, such as call center, customer care, and retail, both in food and non-food. Right, and so what I was asked to talk about is what was it like building the business? Is there anything I can share to other companies, to other founders? Anything, any learnings, or also failures that I can talk about? And I'd like to speak about focus and explicitly look at several areas of focus that we came across in the last 7 years when building Zenjob as a marketplace. One is around the product market fit. Then it's around tech and automation. It's about the flywheel. I'll spend some time talking about that one. I guess everyone has heard or read about a flywheel, when like everyone who is in tech or thinking or working about or in marketplaces. Then also speaking about failures and focus, and finally about culture. I'll keep it short and look forward to answer questions at the end. To start with, I think it's important to underline and to explain the vision we have and on what we actually saw when starting the company. So why did we actually start? So we looked at the market, and what we saw is that overall the world of work is changing. I think the audience today is very familiar with those facts by now. 7 years ago, we were wondering how things would develop. We saw that people would want to be more in control, that flexibility would be valued more and more. It would be more important to offer variety and choice to workers, as well as a high level of efficiency to companies. And we saw this trend, and we were wondering and thinking, how cool would it be if we'd be able to build a technology to address this need and to accelerate that change? And we came up with a vision and with a mission, and that is the first thing I would say that helped in terms of focus. We came up with those two, and they helped us being a good guideline and compass to go back to whenever we had to take strategic choices. And while the vision is formulated very general, basically that we want to offer, a solution that helps people to have more control in their work life, the mission is a little more precise already. And what you read in there is that we deliver unparalleled flexibility. And for us, this is core. And you will also see later on that when talking and thinking about USP for our users, companies as well as workers, the flexibility is the one thing that stands out. And as a platform, we believe that the focus on flexibility is a core part, not only of our mission, but also on the company we're building. And when sort of having defined that vision for us, we actually looked at the staffing market, and we wanted, okay, focus. And you might also ask, okay, how can you talk about focus when talking about the staffing market? It's a massive market. You have huge players. I've listed 3 here. You've got staffing all around the world. You find players in staffing all around the world. It is actually the opposite of focus. How can you actually talk about focus with such a market? And we looked closer, and what we saw is that it's a big market, but it's highly fragmented. And if you double click, you'll find out that there's a lot of players and industries that are actually very niche. You might have specific regions or specifications by industry, and we believe that that is a choice. And we actually decided to narrow down our market again and again and again and again to find the niche in the niche of a niche. And to explain what I mean, I put up an example. What you see here is a first important point on focus, which is the finding or using focus to finding the first PMF, the product market fit. And we started in Berlin, as I mentioned, and we were wondering how to get a foot in the door, how to start our business on such a huge market. And we particularly looked at hotels and thought, hey, we're just going to go into hotels. And then we thought, well, hotels, that's actually quite a big market. And you see the 2 axes here. One is the market size, and the other one is the pain, the willingness to pay for customers. We thought, okay, hotel stuff, that is a huge market, and customers are also willing to pay for a solution, but it's very crowded. All the big players, about, like Manpower, Adecco, Randstad, they're all there. It's highly competitive. The product or the solution is highly commoditized. It's very, very hard to make a living there. And now the natural next step is to sort of look a bit lower, or to break down a sub-market. And what you could do is you could think about the same size of the market, but maybe with a lower pain. So think about you offer staff that speaks at least 4 languages. This is really cool because it's a very special thing. But the problem is, it's very likely that you will not find a lot of hotels who pay you an extra markup for staff like waiters, right, or kitchen helpers that speak 5 languages or more. Plus, well, actually, it's also not only that you find only a few hotels, they also would be fairly okay if your staff speaks, say, 2 languages or 3 languages. So yes, that would work, but A, low pain, and B, low market. If you go for a bigger market with a low pain, would also be cool. Say you tell hotels, you know what, we'll send you branded stuff. and they'll all wear, shirts with your logo on. Every hotel manager will say 2 thumbs up, this is amazing. But when you send them the bill, not very likely that they will pay extra for it. Most importantly, they need waiters, and they need to watch their costs. So yes, big market, but low willingness to pay. The pain is not as high. This is what we looked at, and we were wondering, how can we get into the market? What is something that has a very high pain? And yes, it's a small market, but in the market, there's a high willingness to pay. And we saw that it is a big problem in hotels that on the same day or within 24 hours, staff would cancel, not turn up, there would be unforeseen peaks. And so we thought, this is the entry for us. We'll do what no one else can do. We'll do something that no one else is willing to invest in. We'll offer 24-hour or last minute staff for just one industry in a very specific area. And this is how we will get a foot into the door. There's reading which I can recommend, which is The Innovator's Dilemma by Clayton Christensen, which speaks a lot about big incumbent players looking at the big share of the market and ignoring or not having the capacity or the relevant attention to look at smaller markets or at small players coming from sort of a space that you oversee. You've seen that, or you might see that with Booking.com, where Airbnb just started, with the B2X rentals, and then more and more made a market out of it, and or Hotel Tonight, so those are some examples. And the idea is that you start with a very, very narrow but precise product market fit, and from there you can gradually then develop and grow into the market. And this is for us the first area where I'd say we used focus as a way to grow the business by a high level of discipline and focus on this flexibility. And as a next step, it's important to understand that we are building software, and we need to build a software on which we can build heavy operations with a lot of edge cases. And this can create an advantage, but only if you have a high level of focus. Otherwise, your software is not resulting in a better or a faster or a 10x better product to your customers. So we looked at the basic staffing process, and basically you have clients who order stuff on the one side, and then you have talents or workers who do a job on the other side. And when we started working on the technology, we were wondering, how cool would it be if we'd use the technology to make the whole process a little lighter and more customizable? How cool would it be if talents could actually choose a job? They're not told where to work and what to do, but they can pick the job. That's a big change. It sounds small, but it's a big change. And so we came up with a nice app and with a way of visualizing jobs, but also giving choice to our users, to our talents, on where to work and what to work. And from there, the next step was that actually by bringing together supply and demand, we gain data, and by automating it, we gain even more data. So why not start using that data to improve the experience on both sides and the efficiencies? So we started using data, we started building a matching engine and a booking engine, and over time used more and more data, whether it's for recommendation and prediction and many other topics. And this, of course, helped to then overall create a level of automation that did not only make us a fast and efficient provider for workers and for jobs, but at the same time also allowed us to work on invoicing, on payrolling, and offer an end-to-end automation in the staffing industry. And this focus on technology helped us to actually gain a big advantage. And what you see here is only sort of the last year of progress when it comes to automation. It's a very important KPI within our company. We work with OKRs. One KR is all about automation. It's a big topic for us. And it's not only about, say, the engineering part, this is relevant for our marketing team, our sales team too, our account management team as well. Who are the clients we work with? Which are the edge cases we allow? What are the kind of processes we allow ourselves to go into, and where do we sort of reject? And we reject many clients, we reject many talents, we do everything we can to stick to our focus. And for us, this is sort of a second pillar that I recommend, particularly when speaking to younger companies or to companies that launch or that build a marketplace, to be very, very strict on understanding where and how to use the advantage of technology, and to avoid sort of the distraction of becoming too operations heavy and not having the software to carry the heavy operations. Right. So that's focus number 2. And then there's a focus killer, and that's particularly at the marketplace, the chicken and egg. Why? Because usually you always have one side that is suffering, and like a headless chicken, you go from left to right and back and forth. And in the gig economy and in the staffing economy, technically Zenjob is not in the gig space, but in the staffing space, you have supply and demand, and they heavily rely on each other. Think about a marketplace for pizza delivery. Usually the pizza restaurants have different kind of customers, not only the customers you provide as an online marketplace. In our case, we have the talents who rely on the income, and then the companies who rely on the workers, and there's a very limited level of pain and tolerance. It just needs to work, and you need to cope with it. And on top, temporary staffing is by definition very volatile. So you do have a lot of peaks, and potentially those peaks are even sort of, instead of leveling out each other, are actually the opposite. So it is a lot of pain to cover both sides. And of course, this is a big distraction for focus, because you would constantly fall short on one side. So that's sort of one of the key questions when building a marketplace, how to overcome the chicken and egg problem. And for us, the solution is the flywheel. I've mentioned it at the beginning. Everyone is familiar with the flywheel. It's fairly straightforward. You add more and more of one, say, of demand, and that will help you generate more supply. And when you have more supply, you can serve the demand even better. Sounds super obvious. Reality is, though, it's way more complex, and it's also nothing that you can just copy and paste from one model to the next. In the past, I've been working with other marketplaces in food delivery, in beauty bookings, just to name 2. And I've seen again and again that every industry and every business model has a very distinct and different way of growing supply and demand. And the clue is that you need to find a way on how growth leads inevitably to more growth. Usually the core offering of your marketplace attracts demand and supply and leads to an even better value proposition. In our case, sort of the core USP, and USP is a unique selling proposition, and unique stands as in unique. Remember what I said at the beginning, we deliver staff as fast as no one else, and we offer a level of flexibility no one else on the market can offer. And that attracts customers. Those customers offer jobs. And by offering a choice to our talents, we offer flexibility to our talents. And that attracts the talent side. And the more talents we have, well, the more flexibility we can offer to our customers. And it's not only about just putting that flywheel together, it's actually about putting a KPI next to every section to the flywheel and putting a team and a name next to every section of that flywheel. And if you now think back to this, what you can see is that, or what you need to think about is that you have peaks, low season, high season, short demand, short supply. Whenever you have such a situation, you can calmly look at the flywheel and understand which section of my flywheel is currently stopping me from growing. Where am I lacking, sort of, or where do I have a constraint? And that turns the whole sort of pain into a very balanced and ideally also data-based discussion, and from there you can derive actions. So that's the third point, the focus on the flywheel. That helps big times, and that's something I can highly recommend. And at this point, I wanted to quickly speak about focus failures. We've had a lot at Zenjob, all kinds, and I've put a map here, which is just sort of as a very very general way of showing how tempting it is as a marketplace, or particularly in the gig space. And I do think Hypertrack is a good example, highly specialized on a small piece sort of of the whole gig economy. How important the focus is in terms of the business model. In our case, we decided to work only for, like, we only offer side jobs only within Germany, only in actually 25 areas of Germany, and they're only for people who have an employment or study and use Zenjob for side jobs. Nothing else. And we do that only for a few industries and only for a certain duration of time. And in between, we test a lot. We test international markets. We test other user groups. Think about refugees. Think about pensioners. We test other industries. Think about health. So far, we test, and whenever we test it, we saw that it immediately creates distraction. You have a way lower ROI and lower confidence in other industries, and it takes time and money, to validate and to increase your confidence. And as a marketplace, particularly in the staffing industry, you can highly benefit from network effects. And it's super important to keep the focus and sort of to stay strong when those temptations come up. It might lure you away, but I'd be like very, very encouraging on sticking to your focus and sticking sort of to rather nail your core market and elevate that instead of going too broad too early. And with that one, I'd come to the final focus that I can share and the learning, and that is actually connected to this slide, which is you need a strong culture. And very often this gets completely underestimated or overseen. A focus on understanding and being clear on the people you want to work with and the people who fit to your company, to your style, but most importantly to your vision, is key. And same thing, it is very easy to make an exception. It can be that you want to hire specific talent, and while seeing that there's some hurdles in the interview process maybe, or something not being 100% right, you still go for it, and usually that doesn't pay out, and that hurts, and it is a distraction, it costs money, and for us, very early after year one, we came up with 4 values, and we used those 4 values day and night at Zenjob. When at Zenjob, you'd see that they're not just hanging on the wall. Actually, the very opposite. They're lived wherever we can. So we use those values in our performance evaluation. We use them in the hiring process. We have Slack icons, using them day by day We use them for feedback conversations. It is part of our culture, but it's also part of the interaction we have with each other. And for each one, though, it's also important to mention what you actually mean with a value. So whenever you run a company or you start a company, having values is great. It's the first step. Putting them to the wall, also cool. But what you need to do is actually explain what you mean with the value and maybe giving some indications. As an example, we have those 4 values, and for the value hungry, we've got 3 sort of exact descriptions on what we actually mean with it, right? And that helps so people can understand. And it's very important to break it down. And having a focus in the company starts with having a focus on the people you work with, hiring top talent, having talent on board that is fully dedicated to the vision and mission you have, and then also talent that is also keen on, you know, cracking a very hard problem with a high level of focus. And if you have those ingredients, I believe then you can sort of actually get very far, can be very successful, can build a strong company. I've put together also a few sort of readings that I can recommend that help you both building a marketplace, having a high level of focus, and having a good culture to sort of nurture that focus. The final sort of final recommendation I can give in the context of focus is that it gets very often misunderstood that focus is about you know, picking a topic and highly or offering or showing a high level of dedication to a certain topic, and then you know, people think, or you think, or I always thought this is actually focus, and that's actually not the case. I do believe focus is much more about saying no to all the other things, you know, that line up, and it's actually not very easy, because usually you have decided something or you've agreed something and you've agreed to focus on something, and then something new comes up and you say, yes, this, I know we said we focus, but this is an exception, or this is very important, or we didn't know 3 months ago and that's why we should be doing it now. And it's very hard to say no, right? It's very hard to say no to other people or to investors or to customers or to revenues. It comes at a big cost to focus. And I believe that this is the most important, or this is the best summary I can give on how also we built Zenjob from a niche player sort of to a leading staffing platform by learning day by day, again and again, on focusing, sort of by saying no. And yeah, with that, I'd sort of conclude, and yeah, I'm happy to take any questions, and yeah, look forward to a nice exchange.
Amazing session, Fritz. We have questions here online on Zoom as well as on the portal, event portal. Let me ask you one of my questions. You have scaled this from a single use case to nearly 100 million euro ARR now. What was that one moment when you experienced that, hey, I'm going to make it, right? Every founder has that moment. I've had it as a part of the journey of 4 other companies that I've been at before, startups. What was that one moment when you said, hey, I know we're going to make it, right? There's a product market fit here that's evident.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think when you start selling your product, particularly as a founder, you need to be selling, right, constantly. You need to sell it to yourself first of all, then potentially you need to sell it to your wife or husband or partner. You need to sell to investors, to first employees, not to talk to customers, and you'll get inevitably through a lot of pain and moments where you'd rather sort of run away or stop. And unless you truly believe in sort of the purpose of the business, I think it's very hard not to give up. And the other thing that helps, of course, is when you see that you actually build a product people like and people pay money for. And when I called or spoke to first customers, they always just threw me out or hang up. on phone. Until I never forget, there was sort of a bigger fashion retailer, and I called them up and told them, hey, we're Zenjob and we can send you staff super fast. Why don't you work with us? And they hang up. So I called them again and said, hey, it's me, something with the line. Just want to tell you, Zenjob is we're super fast and highly flexible. And they said, yeah, whatever, ciao, goodbye. And a week went by and the phone rang, and I obviously sent also emails and letters and whatnot. And the phone rang, and this lady from that retailer was on the phone and said, hey, you're these fast people, right? And would it be possible that you'd send us 5 people next week, maybe? And I said, yeah, sure. If you like to, I can send you 5 people today. And then there was a moment of silence, and then she said, like, what? What do you mean? Basically, I said, yeah, like if you tell me, where and what exactly, who do you need and how can we help? And that I understood that there's actually a big pain in that industry. And we, in the early days, we worked with firefighters. By now, we constantly supply businesses on a day-to-day basis in several industries, and it is a growing pain because of the demographic change, because of the limited digitization, because of the trend towards flexible working and the future of work. And when I noticed this one or this trend and this situation with the customer, I understood that actually we're building something that is truly making a difference, and that we could actually be able to build a business out of it.
Wonderful. You have the 4 H's, the humble, helpful, right? There's a question about it. When you're doing experiments to try out a new market, a new category, how much time do you allocate for experiments, and what is the time limit? Do you put time limit on it? What's the gating criteria for when you run experiments to keep the focus?
Good question. It changes. It's one of those things, like everyone would agree that it's very good to run experiments and you should always do experiments. On the other side, you first need to understand what is a valid and a good experiment. And a good experiment is an experiment where you find out your stuff doesn't work, is also a good experiment. And very often it's misunderstood as a bad experiment, but it's not. It's a good experiment, right? So it starts with a mindset. And then the other point is that it's vital that you force yourself to reduce your confidence to as close as much to zero. Otherwise, you'd be tricking yourself, and it's very likely that you'll waste money as well as time. And basically asking yourself, so what's the fastest and cheapest way to validate something and to get a first bit of confidence and then take it from there? So it's very hard to give a general answer. I believe the number, and we are not experts on that. We're learning, right? And the core part is that experimentation can be done and should be done, I believe, in all departments, not only in engineering or product. And secondly, there's always a danger of having a management bias, coming with a great idea or something you've heard somewhere, and there's actually high confidence, but the reality is there's very low confidence. And the third thing is usually the danger is very high that you run experiments or you validate not in the fastest and cheapest way. So that's the way we look at experiments. It differs a lot, but we always try to think for the fastest and the cheapest way to validate any hypothesis, and to always start with the zero confidence.
Fantastic. Thank you, Fritz. Thank you for joining us and sharing your playbook. Everybody, please stay on for the opening session right after this, which is starting off in a couple of minutes, where we'll have Kashyap Devra, CEO of Hypertrack, and Traba delivering the next keynote. Thank you for joining us, Fritz, and I will see you guys all online shortly in a couple of minutes in the opening keynote session. I hope you join us for that one, Fritz, if your schedule allows.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.